Early in the years, when Tesla was training Otis T. Carr, he called Carr's attention to the same fact. Electricity is free in the atmosphere, a gift of God to his people. Carr agreed with Tesla instantly, but Carr was not a financier. He was merely working as a clerk in a hotel package room. Perhaps therein lies the answer. Next part, Farewell of the Dove. When Tesla left his sleeping body on the night of January the 7th, 1943, he did not return to it. The threefold flame which had blazed so brightly in his physical heart for 87 years was withdrawn into his subtle structure. The flowing line of electronic light, known as the silver cord, which enters the body at the top of the head and is anchored in the heart with another branch anchored in the brain, was broken. At once the flow of electronic light ceased, no more pure God substance carrying the energies of the rays entering the physical body through the silver cord. The power which beats the heart of a man, the heart of a solar system, and the heart of a cosmos was withdrawn from the physical. Tesla stood free to enter in full consciousness the realms of unlimited lighted awareness that he had left 87 years earlier, in order that he might walk and talk with men on the planet Earth. During his years in America, Tesla had mentioned to certain persons, among them John J. O'Neill, that he planned to live 130 years. The statement was privately regarded as another bit of eccentricity that could come only from the lips of the genius Tesla. It was understood that Tesla had earlier fixed the period of his stay on Earth at 150 years. He changed the figure shortly after World War I, when Prohibition was adopted. Because of his paradoxical statements about the matter at that time, and the unusual circumstances surrounding his pronouncement, his words were interpreted in the usual Earth manner, and it was generally believed that the Prohibition Amendment had somehow shortened his life. However, Tesla was not in any sense a drinking man, as the term is generally used. Neither was Tesla a hearty eater. It was true that for years and years, immaculately groomed and attired in full dress, he entered the Hotel Waldorf dining room promptly each evening at 8 o'clock, sitting quietly alone at his reserved table, and dining while he read through several newspapers until 10 p.m. It was true that in his early days in New York he often gave lavish dinner parties for many guests, taking them afterwards to his laboratory on South Fifth Avenue for an evening's entertainment. There he demonstrated to his guests thrilling electrical feats of such magnitude that men literally felt their hair raising straight up on their astonished heads. Women squealed and giggled and would have swooned except that they did not want to miss an instant of the magic. But Tesla, while the very core and center of these dinner parties, magic evening, and conversation fest, actually ate little food. As the years passed, he was seldom observed eating. Otis T. Carr said that during the 3 years that he had been trained by Tesla, he never saw him consume any food. However, prior to Prohibition days, Tesla would occasionally, and after due ceremony, drink a tiny glass of whiskey. He said that it gave him a special type of energy that he could use. Then, when Prohibition came, he ordered his last glass of whiskey and made the astonishing statement that Prohibition would shorten his life by 20 years, reducing his time on Earth from 150 to 130 years. In retrospect, it is clear that he was making a direct reference to the future political situation in the United States and to the world situation in general. Prohibition was an early symptom that a sick world was growing sicker. A man of Tesla's caliber was certainly not vitally concerned with a glass of whiskey per se. In the final analysis, it is also clear that Tesla was using the whiskey as a focus for some sort of transmutation. It is doubtless quite true that the tiny glass of liquid would supply him with a special sort of energy, but only after he had called certain energies into action within the liquid. Tesla's atomic structure was relatively clean, at least during the first 70 or 75 years of his life, or perhaps even longer, apparently at the close as he was nearing 87 years. The atoms may have slowed their evolution somewhat, but at no time did he permit himself to take on an accumulation of astral debris, for remember, Tesla could see the astral filth all about him and took special precautions to avoid it. For many, many years he passed currents of tremendously high voltage and high frequency through his body. His associates and friends were astonished that these experiments proved not only harmless but healthful, and most people thought it was merely a feat of showmanship. It was not, however, but rather something which Tesla had extracted from the ether as a definite construct for his own protection. His atomic structure was normally vibrating at a very high rate, and the vibrations were raised even higher by passing the electric currents through his body tissues. He could not burden such a body with quantities of food intended for the ordinary earthman. Moreover, the process of transmuting food already cooked and prepared would have been too laborious. It would require a useless expenditure of time and energy. But a small glass of distilled alcohol could probably have been acted upon instantly by forces summoned into action by Tesla. The little contemplative ceremony in which Tesla engaged before he finally raised the glass to his lips was probably the transmuting ceremony. It could be performed in public, in any bar, without attracting any attention whatsoever. A better understanding of this action can be arrived at by reading the accounts of experiences which various Earthmen have had while visiting on board spacecraft. All of these contacts agree on one point. When they board the craft, they are handed a beautiful crystal goblet containing a liquid of such delightful flavor and fragrance that it is said to be utterly indescribable. It is non-alcoholic, but when it is consumed, it provides the body with a buoyant, refreshing type of energy which clears the brain and gives the individual a subtle sense of serene awareness, free in him from any feeling of fear or hostility. Those contacts who have been invited to dine aboard spaceships have had some interesting experiences along similar lines. George Van Tassel of Giant Rock, California, author of several books on spaceships and space people, said that he was offered small cubes of substance that resembled ordinary cubes of sugar, but before eating them he was asked to qualify them with any flavor he desired. If he thought of ice cream while gazing at the cube, it tasted like the most delicious ice cream. If he thought of a juicy steak, it tasted like a juicy steak, and so on. George Adamski, in his book Inside the Spaceships, tells about dining on board a spacecraft and enjoying a wonderful meal of fabulous foods that tasted like the finest meats and vegetables and desserts. But actually the dishes did not seem to fall into any of these categories. Adamski was also treated to a preliminary crystal goblet of the marvelous liquid with which has been known down through the ages as elixir of the gods. But all of this food and drink served aboard spacecraft is precipitated direct from universal service supply. All adepts must be able to practice precipitation. Moreover, during the Aquarian Age, we must all relearn this method, which we knew at one time, but which was blotted from our racial memory by the contamination brought by the laggards. Ascended Master Saint Germain, the adept in charge of our present era, became a man of mystery all through Europe during the 100 years he served humanity after his ascension on May 2, 1684, because no one could understand his powers of precipitation. In his high-frequency ascension body, Saint Germain was permitted by law to mingle with his disciples on the physical plane for an entire century prior to his appointment as Kohan of the seventh ray.